Hello, my name is Peyton Scarborough, and today we're going to be discussing Alan Turing. Alan Turing is held in high regard for his work in mathematics, computational numbers, as well as being known as the father of artificial intelligence. Alan Turing's work in cryptanalysis and computing were very important in the development of early electronic computers, as well as his code breaking machine, the bomb, which he developed during World War II to help the Allies decrypt German codes. Alan Turing is held in very high regard in the academic community and is the subject of many essays and biographical works. He was a hero, but he was neither honored nor was he held in such regard by his fellow countrymen until years after his demise. He deserved much more than the fate which his government had imposed upon him. So, in order to understand Alan Turing, we will examine his early life up until his enlistment as a codebreaker for the British Allies during World War II, as well as his contributions to computer science up until his enlistment, or up until his eventual conviction for gross indecency for being a homosexual, which led to his suicide in 1951. First, let's look at his early life. Turing's talent in mathematics was noticed at a very early age, even so that his headmaster at the Sherborne Preparatory School had wrote a letter to his parents stating that he was wasting his time, insisting he move to a more specialized institution for the sciences. While attending the Sherborne Preparatory School, Alan had developed a very close relationship with a student named Christopher Morcom. Christopher Morcom is believed to be Alan's first love, for he wrote many letters to Christopher's mother after Christopher's death from tuberculosis at the age of 17, at which he had stated his obsession and love for Christopher Morcom years after his death, and even claimed that he believed that Christopher Morcom remained with him even after his death. After his time at preparatory school, he eventually came to attend Cambridge University, at which he would publish his paper on computational numbers, where he would define the function of a hypothetical universal computer, which could basically solve any problem. And we now know this as being a Turing machine. And this has become the basis for much of what we know of modern computing. From 1936 to 1938, he attended Princeton University, where he studied mathematics and cryptology, and he received his PhD in the Department of Mathematics. During World War II, the Germans used a machine called Enigma to send encrypted messages back and forth from their Navy to their Air Force and vice versa. Alan Turing was enlisted by the British military to help decrypt these codes sent back and forth by the Germans, and he did this by creating a machine called the bomb, BOMBE as it is spelled. Uh, this machine eventually came used to uncover a lot of vital intel and eventually led to preparations which eventually led to D-Day, and it is estimated that his work on the decryption device saved upwards of 4 million lives and ended the war at least 2 years earlier. However, unfortunately, after the war, he was sworn to secrecy for his work. It was highly classified, so he wasn't able to get any of the credit that he deserved. And so he just went on living a normal life. But eventually, in 1952, a burglary happened in his home, and it turned out to be a person whom he was romantically involved with who was involved in the burglary. And because of this, it came out that he was a homosexual. And so Instead of investigating the burglary, the police found his homosexuality to be more of a crime, because at the time it was very illegal to be a homosexual. Um, so when it came out that he was a homosexual, instead of instead of the police investigating the burglary, they just moved all of their attention to him, and he was convicted of gross indecency, eventually given the choice of being incarcerated or becoming chemically castrated. And he chose chemical castration. Sorry, apologies. Anyway, Alan Turing chose chemical castration instead of being incarcerated. Not a year later was it that he was found dead in his home of an apparent cyanide poisoning. The only thing left next to him was an apple, which he had bit into and had apparently poisoned himself. It has been debated on whether or not Alan Turing actually did commit suicide or not, because people believe that he may have accidentally inhaled the cyanide because he had worked on plating jewelry or gold plating silverware in China, and one of the ingredients used for melting gold and plating silverware is potassium cyanide. However, the amount of cyanide found in his stomach did not line up with the amount of cyanide it would take to inhale accidentally in order to die. So ultimately, it was ruled that his death was a suicide. So, in summation, Alan Turing was a hero, but ultimately, his government did him wrong because of his sexuality. Alan Turing should have been held and honored in such a high regard, but because of his sexuality, he was treated like a pervert and a criminal, and this eventually led to his suicide. So, now in summation, I would like to say that Alan Turing was a hero and he was a pioneer, and how he was treated was wrong. It wasn't until 2013 that he was given a full pardon by Queen Elizabeth, and this was with much confrontation from conservative opposers. Um, but eventually, he got the honor and recognition he deserved. Much too late, but we will still remember him for who he was. And I will now end this with a quote by Alan Turing. Sometimes it is the people no one can imagine anything of who do the things that nobody can imagine. Alan Turing. Anyway, this has been an informational speech by Peyton Scarborough. Thank you for your time. Signing off.